What's up guys, Ben Milliken here back for Carl's Mystery Tackle Box. It's springtime, which is my favorite time to get out and fish, especially when those fish are starting to move up like they are right now. We got warmer water, a warming trend, and we got a pre-spawn phase in a lot of parts of the country. So in today's video, we're gonna show you guys two different power fishing techniques to get out and catch fish, especially if you have shallow water and grassy lakes. And then I also have a little finesse technique that's very, very sneaky and has become one of my favorite ways to get out and catch fish all season long, but especially right now in the pre-spawn. You're not gonna wanna miss this one. Stay tuned, let's learn some stuff. So the first bait that I like to get out and throw, especially if you have grass in the lake, I mean, if you have grass in your lake, if the ice has come off all the way up to the spawn, I almost always start with this one. It's right here. The old Lipless Crankbait. This rattle trap right here is a staple, and it's a staple for a reason in the pre-spawn period. It's because it flat out works. You cast it out, you let it get down in the grass, you bog it up, and you catch fish on it. It's that simple. Well, it's not quite that simple. Let me throw this around a little bit. I'll tell you guys how I like to fish this, where I like to fish it, and hopefully catch some fish on it. So the first bait I like to start with in the spring is definitely this lipless bait, like this rattle trap right here. These baits work so well when the water's super, super cold. They have that tight shimmy, they're really loud, and most importantly, they work when the water's like, I've caught it when the water's under 40, you know, like 35, 40 degrees. Fish will still eat this bait. What I'm looking for when I'm fishing this bait, without a doubt in the spring, is grass. Anytime there's submergent grass down in the, wherever on the bottom of the lake, depends on how deep your lake is. Sometimes, you know, it's 15, 20 feet down. Sometimes it comes all the way up to 1 or 2 feet below the surface. But as soon as that ice comes off your lake, don't be afraid to get this lipless bait out and give it a try. The way I like to fish it is I'll make as long a cast as possible, and I will work it, just slowly work it through the grass, let it get bogged down in the grass, and then you're just gonna pop your rod tip. The reason this bait's so effective is because it's a reaction bait. You know, these fish, when the ice comes off, when it's super, super cold, all the way into the pre-spawn, the heavy pre-spawn phase, when they're really feeding up, they want something that's gonna be in their face. They're gonna be sitting there in that grass, just sitting there hunkered down. A lot of the females will sit there when they're getting ready to spawn and just kind of stage up, a lot of people call it, before they move up to their spawning beds. So I like to pull this guy through the grass nice and slow, and then as soon as that bait gets bogged down, give it a pop. And almost every single time, that's when you're gonna get bit. I barely ever just cast out and crank in a lipless bait like this because it's so effective getting that reaction strike and purposely getting it bogged down in the grass. As far as where to throw lipless baits, I mean, it's not confusing really, to be honest. There's a grass line all the way around this lake we're fishing today. So grass is obviously gonna be really good, but I like to find grass where it's a little bit flatter bottom. You don't want a super steep bottom because you want to make contact with the grass as much as possible. And you also want to find somewhere that the wind's blowing in a lot of times. Usually your more active fish, especially this time of year, the sun's back behind us. That's the north bank. That's the bank that's getting the most sun throughout the day and getting the most heat. They'll sit right there on that grass edge and wait for old Mr. Rattletrap to rip right out of there. You know, the tackle guys like to throw lipless crankbaits on really, really varies. But I feel like I have a system in place that I really, really like. It works really well for me. A lot of people throw it on a glass rod because they want the nice absorbance and everything that comes when you let that fish really engulf these baits with the treble hooks. That's fine, that works for some guys. For me, I really, really like a graphite rod for this, specifically a 7.2 to 7'6" graphite rod. Now I'll fish a little bit slower of a rod, a moderate fast action, but still I want a little bit of more power in the rod. I throw a medium heavy, and the reason for that is I want to be able to rip that bait free of grass whenever it contacts it. Like I said, you fish this bait, getting it bogged in the grass, you gotta rip it out. And if your rod's too whippy, it's just gonna give when you go to tear it out of that grass. Another thing is I wanna be able to feel exactly that moment when that bait contacts that grass. So if I am straight reeling it or I'm just barely popping it and feathering it through the grass, I wanna know right when this bait makes contact. And to me, you absolutely have to have a graphite rod for that. That's why I really like to crank with graphite rods. As far as reels go, again, 6:3 to 1 gear ratio reel, nothing too out of the ordinary there, nothing too exciting. This is a reel that I can pick up slack with, but it allows me to fish this bait a little bit slower in the spring. I can let it get bogged up in that grass. That way I'm not keeping it up over the top of the whole time. As far as line goes, guys throw their crankbaits on monofilament as well. I really like fluorocarbon line, 15 pound. If you're fishing like heavy stump fields or really, really shallow grass, 20 pound fluorocarbon works as well. But yeah, that's my system, and that's what's worked for me throwing a lipless crankbait. So this is how I like to Nico rig, and we're gonna use this Bait Lab worm, the Katana Nico hook, and then like this Dobbins. I actually got this in a past mystery tackle box, but the Dobbins nail weight, it's 1/8 ounce nail weight. So we're gonna take our worm right here. And we're gonna take one of these little nail weights, maybe. We're gonna take the nail weight, we're gonna put it right into the head of the worm, right here in this guy. And I really like nail weights that have this part that hangs out of the bottom. You're gonna get a lot better sensitivity on the bottom like that, as opposed to the nails that just go in here and they get completely covered up by the plastic. So try to keep it straight, no rocket science there. And we're gonna take these little O-rings that come with it, and you can use an O-ring tool, but I like to just slide these guys right on over. Nothing too ridiculous. And I like to pull it about, I don't know, we'll say not quite half. We'll go, that's about halfway right there, and we're gonna go down just a hair towards the head of the worm, just like so. Now we're gonna take our Nico hook, we're gonna hook it right through the O-ring, and we're gonna get a little bit of meat from this worm with it as well, because I found this O-ring will slide up and down if you don't grab some of that worm. But that's it. And the reason this is so effective is it just goes right along the bottom. This weight holds it down, but it's like something feeding on the bottom. This worm looks really, really good down there, and obviously it sinks. Now, one important thing is to always put the hook pointed up away from this weight. A lot of your bites, almost all of them, are gonna come from the top down, and that'll give you a good hookup almost every single time. As far as places we want to fish this Nico rig, these are going to be days when it's super, super tough that I bust this guy out, or places it's really clean. We got really clean water today, and we got a grass line that comes out quite a ways. Now, if the fish aren't up actively feeding in the grass, not a problem, especially if the sun's high. A lot of times on high pressure days, they like to get off on that grass edge, or that's where they're feeding, and this is a great way to cover that grass edge. Or if you got a hump or something like that, or a rock pile out in the middle of the lake, even better. Basically, I'm just gonna cast it out, let it fall. This bait falls pretty fast, which is nice for a finesse bait, because a lot of them, you know, wacky rigs take so long to get to the bottom, but I like to get to the bottom, and I kind of let that worm do the trick, do all the magic for me. We're just gonna twitch it, nice and simple like that, and take up the slack. Now, worms down there, it's just, you know, quivering, that tail sticking up. Super, super attractive little presentation. I've caught so many fish on this bait the last couple years. Okay, all right. I think that guy might have got on the fall. Smallmouth, and that's a nice one. Yeah, bud. Over here, be careful, bud. Yep, that's the stuff right there. Now look at that hook. Got some meat right on top of the mouth. Smallmouth Nico rig. I'm telling you guys, get out and throw the Nico rig around on days that it's tough. Today's been a tough bite. The water's 45 degrees. Just caught that dude on it right there. Badass. As far as the tackle I like to throw this Nico rig on, you know, I like to throw on a little bit longer rod. This is a 7'2", medium power, moderate fast rod. I throw it on braid every single time. I like a bigger spinning reel for longer casts. You can throw a little tiny braid on that. 10-pound braid, 8-pound leader. I'll use anywhere from a 5 to a 10 or 15-foot leader, whatever, you know, whatever's on there from the previous time. And then I tie that right directly to this guy. It's a great, great system. Catches a lot of good fish. So when the bite is really, really good, when these fish are super active, I love to throw this wake bait right here. Now, what I'm looking for when I'm throwing a wake bait is, you know, 3 things. You want clean water, you want grass that's almost topped out, or stumps, anything in really shallow water, and you want the sun to be high in slick, calm conditions. We got a little bit too much wind today probably to make this work, but I'll get my boat right up parallel and work this guy right over the top of the grass. Now, if we had a little bit of slick, calm conditions, you'd be able to tell this bait only dives a few inches below the surface of the water. And what that does is it leaves a big wake, hence the name wake bait. And it's deadly effective on lakes. Oh, I'm trying to throw it in trees now. But it's deadly effective on lakes where the grass is almost topped out, especially in the pre-spawn phase. You can catch them on this thing in the summer as well, but this is the time of the year you definitely want to be throwing it. Well guys, even on a day like today when it seems like there's conditions, some feeding conditions, when the fish would be a little bit more active, the water's still super cold and apparently they want to be off that grass edge. And old Mr. Nico got the job done again. So seriously, go out and deploy this rig right here and go try those other two baits, the lipless and the wake bait, to catch some more fish this spring in the pre-spawn phase. Anyways, thanks so much for watching this video. Please go subscribe if you have not already to Carl's Mystery Tackle Box so you can watch more tip videos like this one. Anyways, thanks so much for watching this one. I'll catch you next time.